to the season 4 finale of Performing the Arts. I can't believe I made 40 episodes so far. Thank you for those who keep on watching. Thank you those who keep on listening. Thank you those who actually now have seen the website and seen www.pta, the ptashow.com. So yeah,
theptashow.com.
Yeah, and
That's a good domain. It's a good domain.
I know. As you can see, this is today's guest, Anthony Noto. I worked with him and his.
My dog Ernie is refusing not to play fetch today. He must play. He must play. Unfortunately, my missus is watching one of her favorite shows in the bedroom. So I'm in the living room and she said, the dog wants to be with you. So I got the dog, even though I have to do this very important interview, which I invited myself to, by the way. I'm a little embarrassed about that.
Oh, no. I'm happy when people actually invite themselves. I just
Bryan, don't you want to talk to me for your online show about actors and creative types?
So, I actually worked with Anthony a couple of years ago now? It was a few years ago.
2018.
2018. So almost 3 years ago. He directed Much Ado About Nothing. I played the role of Burgess, and it was a very small role. And I didn't have to do that much. I didn't have to say that much, but it was more about the performance and the comedy. And being directed by him was a great joy because, it took me a while to actually figure out how to actually do Shakespeare. Because when you do Shakespeare, it's, as I said, it's a whole different beast just by doing everything. And what you do,
you did great. I know it was a small role, but you played the heck out of it, and you were wonderful. And I was one of the great joys of, I don't know, the past several years, I would say, was directing that show, and you were a part of it. So thank you for being a part of it. And you were amazing. I loved everybody in that cast. Everybody was a joy. You had Stephanie, who was my Beatrice in one of your previous episodes. And Matt Leonard, who was the lead. Benedict, who was also in the film, which I hope to talk about a little bit in the next 30 minutes.
Or so.
And Danny Beaton, who was you were his sidekick for in that play, and he was also in the short film as well.
Yeah, I remember actually going to auditioning for Much Ado, and I was like, I'm probably not gonna hear anything. It's Shakespeare. I'll just try my best. And I remember it was like, what other roles would you want to do? And I wrote down Dogberry or Verges. I'm like, and I was like,
you got it.
Yeah, I was like, it's weird because I think he told me it's like no one actually put down in their thing is like they want to play either Dogberry or Verges. So, and the thing about
and they're great parts. Like, in the Kenneth Branagh version, their scenes are so funny, and in the Joss Whedon version, they're great parts, and you did a great audition, and I was happy you were part of it. That whole experience was fun, and if anybody listening out there doesn't know the joys of performing Shakespeare in a park, I suggest you get on that because it's a great joy.
Oh yeah. So I do have a question about how did you actually get into a working relationship with BrooklynOne Productions, the people behind the Shakespeare in the park in Bay Ridge?
So it's a quick story, basically. So I got involved with a group called Dialogue with Three Chords, which is run by one of my brother's best friends named Michael Laporto. He became my friend. And his colleague, Stephen Gracia, writes a play a month. And it's this wonderful punk rock, shoestring, basement theater, a new play every month. You can go, and it's like this rotating band of actors who all get involved. We all go and support each other, and it's so much fun. And who was there one day was Anthony Marino. And we just hit it off. We're both named Anthony. And basically said, I got this theater company. We're looking to do more shows in Bay Ridge. Why don't you come along and see what we're up to? And we just became friends. And I've worked with them on and off ever since. Had to have been like, gosh, I want to say 2013.
Wow.
2012, maybe. That's when I met them. So it's been a while, and he's been a great collaborator ever since. And I got to do some fun stuff with him. We did Shakespeare in the Park. We did Bachelorette, which was a really good play. They made a movie out of it with Kirsten Dunst, and Will Ferrell produced it. Some people are familiar with the movie, not the reality TV show. That's different.
Oh, okay. I was like,
I saw you're like, what?
What?
The reality TV show? No, it's a play. It's actually a really good play. Nick Allier was the director. She was really great. I had a lot of fun with that. And so when the 6th annual Shakespeare Festival was on deck, the plan was to do Much Ado About Nothing. And I asked Anthony, I have an idea for it. What do you say if I direct? And he was kind enough to say yes. And that's that. And it was really wonderful because I interviewed so many talented people. I auditioned so many talented people, and I got to cast them all. I didn't have to tell anybody to go home, which was such a relief for a first-time director. I don't think I would have the heart to tell anybody they don't have a part,
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I tried my hand at directing a few years ago. It didn't pan out because of reasons, and most of the time it's literally like you see a lot of great people, you see a lot of potential, and then you see, okay, maybe these two people, because or maybe these three people could be that type of potential that you need to have to be on the stage. Because
yes, and what's funny is one of your other previous guests, Ariel Marcus, I know her from an audition that I went on for a play for Reasons to Be Pretty. It was a play that was being produced on Staten Island at the Seaview Playwrights. And I had never actually had a conversation with her in person other than that audition room. But our paths crossed in email or whatever and virtually. And we did a scene together, the big dramatic blow up between the male lead and the female lead. And I was in the play. She didn't get in, but she was awesome in this scene. And I was like, man, I would love to work with her again. And we never got the chance. But she went off and did her own thing, the
Women's Playwright Collective.
The Women's Playwright Collective. And
shout out to them.
Shout out to them. And that's pretty much how people work. They go off and they start producing their own stuff because they have the wherewithal to do so. And she was super talented, and I wish we got to act together again, but we stayed in touch over social media or whatever. But she was super talented, and that goes to what you were saying. You never know who might have chemistry, who might click in a certain scene. And I thought when I did the scene with her, it was so much fun.
Yeah, it's weird because I was just thinking about this today too, is that theater or rather the entertainment world in general is such a small world. At least someone somewhere that could easily be, in one play, and then you go work another play, maybe as a stagehand or maybe as, such and such. And then you could probably find the same person working that same play. You go, hey man, I was just, it's weird, I was just thinking of the play that we just did maybe a few years ago.
Which one was that?
Like maybe The Devil's Dance or something like that. And then it was like, oh. Dance. I'm like, oh, okay. And then.
Yeah, it's a super small world. I mean, you never know who you're going to run into to in the audition room. And unfortunately, the past 2 years, there was no theater going on. So I don't think anybody has experienced that in the past year and a half, and which is unfortunate and sad. But once things get back up and running again, we're going to know the joys of going to an audition and then hopefully getting the part. And if not, just seeing our friends in the audition room and, getting to collaborate on other fun stuff.
It's weird because I've dealt with people who are definitely like, who really do miss being in the theater room, who really do miss that energy. I'm working with a great set of people, the Alliance of Creators, who I just had on the show recently, and each of them I known from college, and each of them are great to work with. And it's very sad that I cannot be in a room physically with them, at least time until all this stuff with coronavirus and stuff like that has like gotten away, all that stuff. And at least marginally has gone down considerably. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I do miss being in a room, and I do miss like the thrill of auditioning in front of a director who may know the role by heart and may have already been pre-pricked. It's there's no qualms about it. Directors have in the past pre-selected people.
Pre-casted.
Yeah, pre-cast, and auditions are just for formality. It's something.
I hate that. One thing I hate is I hate that. But sometimes it's unfortunately necessary. But
yeah, especially
because you want to work with your friends sometimes, and you just pull people in. It's about finding your team. I once took this seminar from a website called Stage 32. If anybody out there is interested in screenwriting, it's a really good website to test your material in these little screenwriting contests. And it's a good way to meet like industry professionals or whatever, Stage 32. And they offer these seminars sometimes with people in the industry. And I took one with a director named Frank Stiefel. He won an Oscar for Best Documentary Short one year. And so I was like, I want to hear what this guy has to say, because he put things together on a shoestring budget, and he just went and shot his short film, and he took it as far you can go with it, which is the Academy Awards. And I remember I asked one of the questions, I was like, well, how do you, like, when you're first getting started, what's that like? And he they read him the question because he can't hear me or see me, but he basically goes, you have to find your band. And that really struck me. He goes, it's like finding your rock band and people you can play with and basically improvise with, and people who are going to be there with you when you need them.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense. And it reminded me of this scene from the movie That Thing You Do. Remember, did you ever see that movie? There's a scene where Shades is talking with the jazz musician, and he's like griping. He's like, I'm in this band, we got this one hit wonder, and the name of the band was The Wonders, which I thought was cool. But the guy he's talking to, this veteran jazz musician, was like, man, I've been with some great bands that never made it past one night.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, then I've been with guys who I've played with for years, and we just know each other in and out. And it's kind of a metaphor, because there's so many projects that we look to get started on, and we want to bring in our friends, and sometimes those projects don't pan out, or they stall over and over again.
Yeah.
And so the idea, and it doesn't mean that the people you brought in are not talented or whatever. It's just sometimes it doesn't work. You have to find people where you can really gel with, and Dialogue with Three Chords is one of those situations. Michael and Steven, they're the director playwright team. Yeah. And Edie Nugent is their producer, and she's been producing their stuff for like 6 years now. So I think, no way. They're close to like 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they've been going forever. They've been doing play readings in Greenwich Village. Then they did play readings in the East Village. And they've been doing things via Zoom, just like everybody else, trying to keep the art alive during these crazy crazy years that we've been trapped in, these Groundhog Day moments.
Past year and a half. Really.
Yeah, and the same thing with Anthony Marino with BrooklynOne. I mean, it's the same coterie of strangers that keeps coming in and out, and we all know each other. We gel, and we've done some pretty good plays together. And that's the thing. You have to find the right collaborators. So when it came time to do this short film, for example, I was like, let me pull in the people that I know could, really work and that I have good chemistry with, because I was in it. I played a part, and the fact that I got to.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the film in a couple of moments. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, just to wrap it up, the point is, like, I brought in Matt Leonard, who I knew I could do a scene with without a problem, because he and I, not only are we friends, but we've acted together in the past, and I knew we could make it work. And Danny Beaton was there, and my friend John, who is the DP, John Carrera. We've worked together in the past, and Julie Orkis, who is the actress in the film, the main actress. I knew her from Dialogue with Three Chords, and so I needed an actress who spoke Russian. I didn't know she spoke Russian, and I called Michael Laporto, and he was like, "Why don't you just cast Julie? She speaks Russian." And I was like, "Of course." So I called her. So it was like another collaborator from a past project, worked with me on this. And of course, last but not least, was my Mrs. Tess, who is producer and had a walk-on role. And she's the one who kept a close eye on everything. And it was just a super fun experience. You make your own work, just like Ariel did, Ariel Marcus. She made her own project. She went out and did her own thing.
A few years, a few years ago, when it was like a couple of months after we did Much Ado, I was in Brooklyn College.
You were in that film course. Didn't you take a film class?
Yeah, I took a film class, and the first thing we had to do was essentially make not the first thing. One of the first projects we had to do was essentially a short 2-minute scene or something like that. Sound, and I asked Nikki, who I knew from BrooklynOne, all that stuff, and she said, "Oh yeah, no problem," because she was like one of the only people who actually reached out to me and actually said, "Oh yeah, no problem. I could easily come out to Brooklyn and do all that stuff." Right.
What was the scene? So you had to film the scene yourself?
Yeah, with my group, we actually had to film inside the Brooklyn College library. We first had to get.
Oh, how cool!
Yeah, and then essentially we had to create a scene that was essentially, hey, guy passes over a note to a girl, and then essentially, make do with that. Some classmates made it into a psychological thriller. Some classmates made it into a comedy. We made it into a romantic, a short romantic moment between this guy who had crushed with this girl, and then he leaves the library, and the girl's like, "Who is this mysterious guy?" And he just happens to leave. So it's definitely, and of course, what you were just saying before, it actually makes sense, because the people who I was working with, I was gelling with them quite clearly. So even if I had something in the future that I needed to do, i.e. with another film thing, I would be like, "Hey, these are the people who I worked with before. They may help me." And of course, when the finals came around to do, now it's time to do all this stuff by yourselves. Naturally, a lot of these people who were already working together essentially start working together. So I actually had to do essentially pulling from my own resources, and that allowed me to actually make my own short movie to something what you just said before. Again, where I had to pull my resources to people who I knew and people who I knew could help me with that. And it's like when you make a short film, or at least something film wise, you go with the people who you knew, who because one, they are effective workers, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't mean just working with
people who you know.
People you know, not just your friend. try to find people who are just better than you. Like for example, my buddy John, who was the DP on this, he's just a master at cinematography, and he's also just an amazing director all around. So he's the one who gave me my first job doing storyboard art for short films and commercials. And so he was like, hey, you want to do like storyboard art for me? And I was like, I didn't even know what a storyboard artist was. And so he gave me a shot, and I've been hooked. That was like a little over 10 years ago, I think. And then when we just stayed friends all these years, but even if we weren't friends and I saw his work, I'd be like, this is the guy who knows what he's doing. So the key to getting anything done is just work with people who are really good at what they do.
Yeah.
Like don't try to take everything on yourself, and don't think that you're a master at everything. Find people who just are really smart and know what they're doing.
And sometimes in fact, it does end up being like your friends are actually more smarter than you think. And especially friends who have been like shut out. Well, not shut out, but haven't given opportunities that they wanted in that field, especially in theater or in film. But but moving forward with the film, did you get this idea of this short film from the Stage 32 short thing, or was it just something that?
No, Stage 32 is just this platform that I happen to get a newsletter from every now and then with advice on how to make it or whatever. But actually, one of the things that they do offer are lessons and little seminars about how you can produce short films on a micro budget.
Oh, really?
And so maybe that's partially what inspired me, was how to produce a film on literally nothing. Like, so we, it was basically, because I had worked on certain things before, and I made an effort to get like expensive equipment.
Yeah.
And so, for example, one documentary that I worked for, it didn't come out. But it was a job, and I was tasked with finding the camera to use, and I started researching, and I watched the movie Knock Down the House. It's a documentary about AOC.
Yeah.
And the director of that movie was a woman named Rachel Lears. And I read this blog post that she wrote about how she used the Sony FS7. So I was like,
okay,
hey, look, the movie looked amazing. Yeah, I'm going to look it up. I'll rent that, and we'll use that for the documentary. Because if it was good enough for this documentary that I loved on Netflix, heck, that's the one I want to work with. Yeah. But when you rent these expensive cameras, you're spending some money, even if you rent them. And if you buy them, it's even more expensive. And you have to take insurance out on it too, whether you rent it or buy it. And they credit that back to you, but it's costs a lot of money for a weekend. And if you're trying to produce your indie short on a budget, that might not be the option.
Yeah.
Or the best option. So what you do, just pull out your smartphone. And we used our smartphones, and we didn't even have the best iPhone cameras. We had the XS Max or something like that, and the iPhone, what are we up to, 11?
Yeah, iPhone 11X, I think, maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so that came out like a few months later, and so we didn't even use the best cameras available, but the cameras are pretty darn good on the iPhone. So I was like, why not? Let's just do it and see if it works. And it did. The shots really look gorgeous.
Amazing. Yeah, they do look amazing. You. And I was actually going to ask you, was like, how did you film the thing? Because a lot of it actually did feel very organic. Like you actually were using like a handheld thing, but now hearing that it actually was like, say, an actual, phone, and like, it makes the filming of it seem a lot more okay, like legitimately organic, because a lot of it does feel like a New York, not only a New York moment, but also just like it's like
yeah. Well, that's exactly what it was, Brian. It was pretty much, without spoiling too much, because it's not going to be on YouTube for a while, but maybe by the time this episode comes out, it might be.
Yeah.
And people will see. It's, if there's anything I could say about it, it's just a little love letter to New York, and a specific corner of New York. So the Chess and Checkers house in Central Park.
Yeah.
I love this spot. It's very scenic, and it's like a perfect place for a romantic afternoon.
Rendezvous.
With, yeah, rendezvous.
Okay, so I did have a couple of questions about the filming.
Sure.
One, was this filmed before or after COVID had like started to come about in
Before.
Yeah. Okay. It did feel like it was filmed before, like way before.
Yeah. October 2019.
Oh wow. And yeah. That's a long time.
It was a long time, but then what happened was COVID, and I had to find an editor, and because I did not have the means or the know-how to edit. I've edited certain things like news items and a little music video on my phone, but I'm not an experienced editor. So I wanted to find one, and it was tough during COVID, but it worked out because there are things that are in the film that wouldn't have been there if I came out with it last year.
Yeah.
So I literally, it's like stuff that happened like in the last month. And if I went into it, like, you would be like, oh, that's crazy. But it was actually like meant to be that it took this long to make it come out. Like, I wouldn't have had the same music. I wouldn't have had the same editor. I wouldn't have had some of the shots in there that I have.
Yeah.
It would have been a completely different film, and it might have been one that I didn't like as much.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that it took a year and a half, that's fine. Like, I'm cool with it. And plus, people need new entertainment anyway, because not a lot of movies are coming out these days.
Oh yeah.
So it's only 8 minutes, but it's a good 8 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it is. I was actually surprised to see how long it was too, because I was like, oh, it's a short film. It was like probably 20, 25 minutes, and now I see about 8 minutes. Oh my God, 8 minutes?
Oh, I'll watch it, no problem.
Yeah, no problem. 8 minutes.
Brian's like, I gotta sit through 20 minutes of this amateur shit, and you're like, oh, 8 minutes I can do. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's also a person's attention span too, because I would be watching a show on maybe on Netflix or HBO Max, something like that.
Yeah,
I'd be like watching, and then suddenly my hand would just go to my phone, and then so I'm like, okay.
Yeah. This show is going on way too long. Yeah.
That's
now, what are you watching these days? What do you enjoy on HBO Max? Because I'm obsessed with HBO Max right now.
I recently just finished watching Euphoria for the first time, because one, I hadn't got a chance to see it because one, we haven't owned HBO in a long time. The last time we actually owned HBO when The Sopranos was on. And The Sopranos was on, no more of HBO.
Yeah.
Just switched to Showtime. So I had Showtime for the longest time. And then all I hear was like, oh, you're missing Game of Thrones. Missing, all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to watch Game of Thrones. I got Shameless to watch, or I got Ray Donovan to watch.
Yeah, there's so many shows to get through.
Yeah, and then my brother was able to get HBO Max, and I was like, okay, we'll just try HBO Max. And then, I'm going through the shows, and there's Euphoria, and I'm like, okay, one of my previous guests, Hennessis, she mentioned that Euphoria has great cinematography and all that stuff, and I'm watching like the first episode. I'm like, oh my gosh, she was right. There was a lot of great cinematography in the show. And I recently watched the two specials, which was actually filmed during the COVID thing. And the two specials were like legitimately watching two people on stage is like talking back and forth, because there's a lot of stuff in the first special just called Pop Run Rue, where it's just like,
the Zendaya.
Yeah.
I saw like a scene where she's like in the diner.
Yeah, and I'm just watching. I'm just so engaged by those two people just talking in a booth, and then I'm just like, I'll be like, shit, how many people, like, how much time has gone by? 30 minutes has gone by and there's only like 20 minutes left. It's like watching a play. It's like,
Yeah.
the moment you like the moment a show has actually engaged you like that, it's like, it's really, really good. On Netflix, another great show is BoJack Horseman.
Yeah.
That's
I love BoJack.
And that's an animated show, and you think, oh, it's an animated show, it's got to be hilarious, all that stuff. But then you take it into a lot of things that there's a whole episode that's just basically one monologue, and then when you that monologue, that episode that is just basically one monologue, you just go, oh my god, that is just amazing writing.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far. I think I'm on season 2.
Oh well, once you get
barely, I think we just started.
Oh,
so we're getting through that. We're right now. I'm into Schitt's Creek, and I'm really enjoying Schitt's Creek. That's the show that I've been killing, and it's been great.
Yeah, there's actually, and this back to another point too, where it's like there's so much stuff to watch now, and a lot of the stuff that has been out or has been delayed or whatnot because of COVID, there's a lot more stuff that's been creating a new niche into entertainment, which is essentially, hey, short movies that were made, during COVID or like a COVID lockdown. Again, Zendaya and John David Washington just did a movie called Malcolm and Marie for Netflix, and that was made during a 2-week production period of like California's first lockdown. HBO Max just released a movie called Lockdown.
Production assistant or an assistant director. And that was it. It was only like 4 people, and they got tested before they shot. And so that super small controlled set, they were able to shoot it in a big house in a short amount of time and be safe. So it's kind of cool because we got a new movie out of it. And at a time when like a lot of stuff is on hold, and we've gone through all the shows that were on our watch list,
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of, but back to your film thing. Now, filming in Central Park, did you have to go through some thing to say, hey, I'm going to be filming at Central Park? Or do you need like a...
Yeah, there's a film department where you have to go and get the go-ahead.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't want to shoot guerrilla style or anything. So I went through the proper route to get permission. And they said that you can only film during this window, which is before the Chess and Checkers house opens. So I was like, oh no. So then I'm like, I can do it. We can.
Okay, I can do it.
And then I went early in the morning, like really early in the morning with Jonathan. And he's like looking at the position of the sun. And he's like, well, if we shoot all these scenes here before 10 a.m., the sun will be there. And he was so cool. He was like taking out his binoculars. And so it was like, he was just really smart with it. And I'm just kidding. There were no binoculars, but like, it was a very scenic place where I was like, it would be perfect to like just hang out here all day, but we can't. So we only have a limited window. And yeah, we got the scene done in a short amount of time. Somebody came by and they were just, checking on us and being like, you guys going to finish up around 10 a.m.? Like, yeah, we'll finish up around 10 a.m. We went a little bit past 10 a.m. because the scenes that we were able to shoot weren't that intrusive or whatever. We were just shooting on the iPhone. We had like a little handheld thing to keep it steady. And, it's just like B-roll stuff and like shots that we didn't need sound. So I think we went to like 10:30 or 11 o'clock. And that's it. I gave them a little like thank you in the credits, and because they were just so accommodating. If anybody wants to film somewhere, Central Park is a great spot.
Yeah, the Central Park is a great spot because I was a student at college a few years ago, and one of the things about around the area of the Upper East Side, there's really nothing to do outside of going through Central Park, and you could only go through Central Park or the museums there without going, okay, what else is there to do? Because outside of maybe Central Park, there's really not that much to do around that area because it's so like it's so catered to people who are essentially rich and stuff like that. And
yeah,
go through Central Park, no matter the day or the holiday or restrictions, whatnot. It's always so fun to do. It's like I would go out. It's like I remember going through. I think no, the not the Natural History Museum, the art museum there. And then after the day was done, I went through the art museum. I was like, you know what? I have it's Central Park there. I'm gonna actually go through Central Park,
yeah.
and I just started walking Central Park, and then I started walking, and then I just started picking up my pace, started running. I actually started becoming one of those joggers in Central Park, just without realizing it. And then by the time I was out of the Central Park, I was like, did I just blaze through Central Park like it was nothing?
Yeah.
But Central Park has that New York effect about it, where it's just like even if you are filming in Central Park, it's just so magical to be in there rather than oh man, I'm in Central Park.
It's the perfect backdrop. It's just
yeah.
I can kill a whole day in there and without thinking twice. It's such a you can just wander and just relax, and there's so much to see, and it's one of the best aspects of Manhattan.
There's that duck pond too, where it's just but filming in Central Park, even with that small time period or time window, was it only just for the one day, or was it just like a couple of days?
No, it was just the majority was just one day. I went back another day to film the last scene, which is 3 years later.
Yeah.
And so that I went back and filmed myself. And so I guess a matter of 2 days. But there were other days leading up to it where it was technically
like pre-production, all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, like I went and scouted out the Chess and Checkers house.
Yeah.
And I took photos and I set up what I thought were going to be the shots I wanted. And so you have to do that. Otherwise you waste everybody's time the day of.
And and of course. So yeah. Now,
and of course there's writing too. You have to, we wrote the story and I rewrote the story and
yeah. Believe me, as a writer, as both a playwright and a screenwriter, it's like so hard for me to write just a single word without me second guessing myself. So
yeah,
it's a process, especially when you're trying to do a short movie. Now, as with you directing on theater and now directing with short film wise, what was your process like? Did you see the same process where it was just like, okay, I like this whole process, or was it like two different processes for you? Was this basically
like doing a play and then and doing the film?
Yeah,
it's a similar process because we had like little rehearsals and read-throughs and that sort of thing. So in that sense, it's pretty similar. So we just got together and read through the script, and it was almost like getting together and script reading with your friends when you put on a play.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess the last question I have about your thing was that I really didn't realize it would be a short film about chess. And The Queen's Gambit, which a show I really love, just came out on Netflix a few months ago. Was that like something intentional to release something that's like almost coming hot off the heels of a very popular.
Yeah, it's so funny. That's the one thing I worried about. I was like, because I wrote it before I even knew what The Queen's Gambit was. I actually haven't watched it yet. And it's funny. It's like, oh, I hope people don't think that, but it's not. It was just we filmed in 2019. I didn't even know what if Queen's Gambit was even a book at that time. And but apparently it's been in production for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, I heard wonderful things about that show. I can't wait to watch it. But I mean, chess. I think chess is just back thanks to Queen's Gambit. So maybe it'll be a good thing that people can enjoy this chess story on when they see it on the web because they're familiar with it with the show. I heard that stores were selling out of chess sets.
Yeah,
because the show was so popular.
Yeah, I think it's like when you release that has a great effect on everything. chances are there's going to be something that ends up essentially outselling the actual product itself, and it ends up just being like a minor product. It could be like, I remember the Matrix came out. There were people who wanted to get like trench coats of Neo wearers, or maybe even the phones that they used in the thing. And of course, the more people who buy the product based on the media, the medium, ends up outselling the medium. So yeah, and then yeah, that's it for the questions with the movie. Well, I did want to ask about was the name intentional? Was the name intentional for that twist at the end, or was that just something that you just like, or was that something that you just kind of like wrote at the end of the post production period, where it's just like, hey, I have this idea for a thing. I won't call it what it is yet, or or was it?
I'm not going to tell you. It's whatever you think. I don't know. I want to set that precedent early on. I don't really want to explain too much. It's however you felt after watching it.
Yeah, I honestly think it was probably something that, and of course I like the idea that you don't use subtitles for the Russian character, because if you have the subtitles on, we easily know what's going on.
Right.
So, again, like anybody else living in New York who doesn't like speak another language, when you're hearing another language, you don't know exactly what you're trying to say or what the person who else is trying to say. So you kind of like, so I did like the end where your character is just like, hey, would you want my number or something like that, and then you're trying to turn on your phone doesn't work, and then you're trying to ask the park ranger right next to you is like, can I get all that stuff? And then while you're just trying to do that, she's just like, she's trying to tell you something, but I the twist at the end.
But it's like technology failed him, and at the end of the day, it's like he just resorted to old-fashioned way of communicating. He didn't, there was the language barrier, but they were still able to enjoy each other's company and have a good time, and that was the big takeaway. And I've been in those situations in my life where, like, perhaps you're in another country and you don't speak the language so well, but you can bond in other ways. And so that was basically what why I didn't include subtitles, because in real life there are no subtitles.
Oh yeah.
You're in those situations, you're lost in translation.
Unless you already know the language.
Yeah, exactly. And if you notice in the movie Lost in Translation, when he's sort of this stranger in a foreign land, there was no subtitles in that movie either.
Yeah, it's
because you're in his shoes. You're in his shoes, and you're in Scarlett Johansson's shoes. Yeah. But we can still, it's things are improving. I think I'm going to be optimistic about it. I think the right people are in charge now, and before we know it, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's the fourth quarter, and COVID is on the bench. If we just continue to be safe and up to code, we should be okay.
Yeah. Right now, it's sort of like to put it in a movie's perspective. Right now, Bruce Wayne is heading back to Gotham to fight Bane. So yeah.
Yeah. Right.
After getting his back broken or dislodged, really.
Well, like Batman, we're coming back.
So yeah, but does that mean 2021 is got to go out, ending up flying the bat plane into the river and acting like we killed ourselves? And then
I don't know, but 2022, we're getting like 2 different Batmans in the same year, and 2 different movies, and I couldn't be more excited.
All right, but that's a discussion for another time, folks.
We could do a whole other episode on Batman.
Yes, we could just do a whole roundtable about comic books and movies. What's good? But Anthony, thank you for being a guest on my show. Before I forget, do you have any social media you want to plug?
Yes. Instagram is my last name, Noto, Noto 1031. Give me a follow. And if you would like to collaborate, DM me there, I guess.
Yeah, I think at this point, all of networking is basically just following someone on Instagram, just being lucky enough to have their DM zone. But I mean, either Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, what have you, and just lucky enough to have the DMs open and just like, hey, would you want to collaborate, blah, 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 and interview, blah, 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 and see where it goes.
Yeah.
It's just like, otherwise, it's just like a sure shot of just being like, hey, is it possible?
Well, let me end this with asking you a question. What are you going to work on in the near future? I mean, you did that film project when you were taking that class at Brooklyn College. You're going to continue doing that?
Oh yeah, I definitely do want to do that in the future. I definitely do want to. There's a couple of ideas that are easily to do because I wrote it either before or after COVID struck, and they're very easy 2-minute, 3-minute pieces where it's just like some of it doesn't have words, some of it does have words, but then not a lot of words to go with. It's very easy, 1, 2, 3, but it's more along the lines of getting people to not only getting people to get back into normal, but getting myself back to normal, where it's just like a lot of the times I do feel like there is a lot of like burnout just regardless of what I'm doing. And that's why I really try and do this show every week or so, release a podcast episode every week, and then see where it could go with this. So I do hope to actually do film something in 2021 that isn't a podcast episode.
Well, I mean, podcasts are a great way to just stay creative. And if you're a creative type, all you have to do is just plug in the microphone. This one works really well. It was $20. You plug that into the laptop and you just, there's no gatekeeper to podcasting. Like anybody can do it. And it's just a great way to just, talk into the ether and just interview people just like you're doing. I think it's great. And if you keep it up, I mean, it could turn into something really fun.
I'm hoping so. But yes, yeah. Anthony, thank you for being on today's show. Check out his short film. Hopefully it is out by the time this episode is released. If not, then give me hell and just say, Bryan, when is this show coming? I mean, when is this movie coming out? I would have to tell him and actually say, when is this movie coming out? But yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you'll come out with your movie before that. We should interview you.
But yeah. Oh, me being interviewed is going to be like the last episode of the show. If I ever want to end this show, that's the last episode. It's me.
Well, if you need an interviewer, I'm available.
All right. That has been episode 10 of season 4, meaning that has been episode 40. Oh my God. But yeah, enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to check out our Instagram at the TPA show, our Facebook at the TPA show, our website, www.thetpashow.com. But yeah, enjoy yourselves and thank you for coming by and all that stuff. Take care.